In 1972, South Vietnamese artillery units were being destroyed, not because they lacked firepower, but because they couldn't move fast enough. Counter-battery radar would locate them. Enemy guns would silence them. The lesson was brutal and permanent. In modern warfare, a gun that can't relocate is a gun that won't survive. 50 years later, on a different archipelago, a different army just took that lesson seriously. On April 16, 2026, Philippine Army soldiers fired a weapon in a joint exercise for the very first time. Not a rifle, not a missile, a 155mm Howitzer that can hit targets over 40 kilometers away and drive off before anyone can shoot back. The system is called ATMOS. It's Israeli-made, built by Elbit Systems, and mounted on a high-mobility truck. The Philippines signed the contract in 2020, received early deliveries in 2022, and finally fired it in a live exercise this month during exercise Salaknib 26. An annual bilateral training event with the United States Army at Fort Magsaysay in Nueva Ecija. Philippine crews from the Army Artillery Regiment trained and fired alongside American personnel from the 3rd Battalion, 7th Field Artillery Regiment, 25th Infantry Division. That detail, American forward observers, American fire direction elements, integrated with a Philippine artillery crew, matters more than the hardware itself. For decades, the Philippine military was built for one job: internal security, counterinsurgency, counterterrorism. Its artillery reflected that. Old, slow, designed for jungle fire support. That configuration no longer fits the threat. China has been running a sustained pressure campaign in the South China Sea. Water cannons against Philippine resupply missions. Laser designations against Philippine personnel. Systematic harassment at 2nd Thomas Shoal. Each incident calculated to be just below the threshold that would formally trigger the U.S.-Philippines Mutual Defense Treaty. Manila's response has been to modernize. The ATMOS isn't a counterinsurgency weapon. It's a long-range, mobile, survivable fires platform, the weapon profile of a military preparing for something more serious. That shift is the real headline. This didn't come from nowhere. In 2012, China seized Scarborough Shoal following a standoff with Philippine vessels. Washington brokered an informal withdrawal agreement. Both sides were supposed to pull back. Manila did. Beijing didn't. And Scarborough Shoal became Chinese-controlled territory without a single shot fired. That episode confirmed a Chinese playbook: incremental pressure, sustained below the threshold of open conflict, accumulates into permanent gains. The pattern continued through the 2010s and sharpened dramatically after 2022, more aggressive interdictions, more confrontations, more deliberate pressure on Philippine resupply operations. Each step pushed Manila further from accommodation and closer to the conclusion it has now reached. Diplomacy without capability is just asking politely. The Philippines is over 7,000 islands. That's simultaneously a defense asset and a logistics nightmare. Any military system that needs 30 minutes to set up in a fixed position is a system that can be targeted before it fires. The ATMOS solves that problem. It arrives on a truck, emplaces in minutes, fires, and leaves. In an archipelagic environment where rapid repositioning is essential, that's not a convenience, it's a survival requirement. There's a second dimension. With a range exceeding 40 kilometers, ATMOS batteries positioned on Luzon or Palawan can reach into contested maritime approaches. That's the beginning of a land-based maritime denial capability. Modest right now, but a foundation for something more serious as the modernization program continues. When Philippine crews integrated their fires with American targeting networks during Salaknib 26, they weren't just practicing procedures. They were rehearsing connection into a broader Allied fires architecture. One that, in a real contingency, links Philippine ground systems to American naval and aerial targeting. That integration is the strategic prize, not the howitzer, the network it connects to. The US-Philippines Mutual Defense Treaty has existed since 1951. For most of that time, it was structurally asymmetric. Manila needed Washington, Washington valued basing access, and the arrangement functioned more like patronage than partnership. That's changing. A Philippines that generates its own deterrent capacity, that fields capable systems, integrates with Allied targeting, and trains seriously, reduces the burden on American extended deterrence. In an environment where the United States is simultaneously managing Europe, the Taiwan Strait, and the Middle East, that matters. Allies who can carry weight are strategically valuable in a way that dependent clients are not. The regional picture reinforces this. Japan has approved counterstrike capabilities and a defense budget heading toward 2% of GDP. Australia is acquiring Tomahawk missiles and HIMARS. Vietnam is quietly modernizing coastal defenses. The Philippines fits into a broader pattern, not a formal multilateral alliance, but a network of bilaterally connected states, each building indigenous capacity, each raising the cost of Chinese coercion across the first island chain. The larger strategic question of this decade is simple. Will the military balance across the first island chain remain credible enough that Beijing judges coercion too costly? For years, Chinese incrementalism exploited a gap between what American treaty commitments promised and what American political will could reliably deliver. That gap hasn't closed, but it's narrowing. American strategic focus has refocused toward the Indo-Pacific. Chinese behavior, the economic coercion, the gray zone operations, the wolf warrior posture, has pushed regional states toward harder alignments faster than any American diplomatic effort could have managed. The ATMOS is one node in a distributed deterrence architecture Washington has been trying to build for a decade. Every Allied capability milestone adds resilience. Every interoperability exercise adds credibility. The architecture isn't finished, but it's being built. The uncomfortable question is whether it's being built fast enough. If Beijing concludes the first island chain is consolidating against it, the incentive is to accelerate pressure before that consolidation matures. Not through open warfare, but through sharper gray zone operations targeting the weakest points in the chain. The Philippines remains one of those weak points. Air defense is limited. Naval capacity is modest. The ATMOS fills one gap. Significant others remain. Second Thomas Shoal is the most likely flashpoint. The BRP Sierra Madre is deteriorating. Chinese interference with resupply missions is intensifying. At some point, the status quo there becomes untenable, and what happens in that moment will test every assumption in the current deterrence architecture. Whether treaty commitments hold in an ambiguous gray zone confrontation is not a question that press statements can answer. It's a question that gets answered in real time. under pressure, when the decision has actual consequences. On April 16, 2026, Philippine soldiers fired a howitzer in a training area in Nueva Ecija. The world didn't notice. But strategy doesn't announce itself. It accumulates in procurement decisions, in exercise schedules, in the slow institutional knowledge that builds when a military that spent decades looking inward finally begins to look outward. The ATMOS is one expression of that shift. Modest in isolation, significant in context. The deterrence architecture across the first island chain is being built. Whether it matures fast enough, whether it holds when it's actually tested, is the question that will define the Indo-Pacific for the decade ahead. And right now, nobody knows the answer.